You're listening to the Free Thinkers Club Podcast Network.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. This is our UFC Vegas 19 post show, and we got a lot to break down. Let me introduce my co-host first. AJ, man, how are you living? What you think of some knockouts and stuff? I know we're going to get into that just a little bit later, but I want to know just in terms of like a knockout crazy card, seeing a lot of finishes, what were your thoughts in comparison to the other cards we've been getting recently?
Well, overall take from the whole card, Derek, some things we were expecting, some things we weren't expecting, but seeing crazy knockouts all night is good for the brand, and it made me very excited as a fight fan to also see some very technical fights mixed in as well, so everybody could get a good mix of what's going on in the sport. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm basically in the same boat, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you can tell that on some picks definitely overthought it because the way that they played out, it's like, all right, man, obviously that's how it's going to play out. And when you're going on a 50-50 chance, like two fighters just getting in the ring and trying to get it in, it comes down to sometimes, man, keep it simple. KISS. You already know what it goes, man. But let's do a little bit of a record recap, man. And you got me on this one. You was on a real hot streak this week, man. So you went 4-2. That took your record overall to 17-17. So you at the coveted 50% mark. Very impressive. You know, hats off to you. A little round of applause and all that good stuff, right? Now as for myself, man, it was a little rough. I went 2 for 4 on the main card, which put me back at 15-19. So I got a lot of work to do if I want to catch up to you, man. But it's okay because we got a lot of cards coming up. A lot of really good cards coming up too, man. So let's start the clock, man. You know what I mean? I'm going to put 40 minutes on the clock, and we're going to do what we do as normal here, man. We're going to break down, assess a little bit of damage, right? We're going to do a little bit of matchmaking, and then ultimately what it's going to come down to is, we're going to say, let's put our ear to the street, man, and get it in that way. So 40 minutes starting now. AJ, man, let's assess the first. Let's go just kind of, what captivated us the most, and obviously it's going to be the main event of the night, right? Derrick Lewis takes his right uppercut, and he destroys Curtis Blaydes, put him on the map. He was asleep for a couple minutes. You had said something in our preview show basically saying that the best takedown in the sport of MMA is a nice left hook. Well, I'm going to have to say that the best takedown defense in the game got to be the uppercut, right? Because Curtis Blaydes learned the hard way that Derrick Lewis is an all-American wrestler, right? And this is what he needs to do to get the job done. So just let's take some impressions, man. Derrick Lewis was a plus 350 favorite. Most logical MMA fans did not think that he was going to get the job done, but the striking was too much. What was like a big takeaway from this fight specifically for you?
The biggest takeaway for this one, Derek, is like you said, the logical choice was Lewis or Curtis Blaydes, excuse me. Yeah. But this was exactly a matter for me of my heart or my head outthinking my heart. Mm-hmm. You know what I said? I was like, I hope I'm gonna eat my words and Derrick Lewis gets a win. That's what my heart felt. But I overthought it, and I thought it was Blaydes' time to come back. And I do think he still has a big future going ahead. And he gained a lot of fanship, especially because he fought hard. But like you said, man, Derrick Lewis proved, especially when you throw that uppercut, even if you miss, you still have the underhook. Michael Bisping was talking about on the show. But it's so smart because he hit him a couple times, and he would just dip down when the shot would come. He'd see the shot coming, he would dip down as well and sit on the punch, whether it was a straight or an uppercut. And we saw what it was, man. That uppercut put him to sleep. Yeah. What was the big takeaway for you?
Well, I'm basically in that same boat. You know what I mean? It's like Curtis Blaydes' kryptonite is the power punchers, and in the heavyweight division, I mean, it's tough to get away from those type of guys, right? But if you saw even the commentators, Michael Bisping and them, and Fitz, I forget homeboy's name, but the commentating team at the UFC, they was basically saying that Curtis Blaydes was playing a really dangerous game. Like he didn't have to sit there and try to stand up with Derrick Lewis and put himself in the one spot where Derrick Lewis was most advantageous, which was in that transition between I'm standing here and I'm shooting in for the takedown. Now, Curtis Blaydes did attempt a takedown, and Lewis stuffed it. So I'm gonna have to go back to you, man. You pointed out, you're like, well, Lewis's takedown defense isn't as bad as everyone is really making it out to be, especially when it's you're coming in, you're blasting on a double leg or something like that. Generally, it's the single leg that gets Derrick Lewis. Generally speaking, almost every single time. But I think this was also a matter of Curtis Blaydes. Like I said, he was very, very confident, and it's one of those times where Lewis said that Blaydes didn't do anything that Lewis wasn't expecting, that their camp hadn't trained for, which tells me that Curtis Blaydes did the approach of, well, I'm going to keep, if it's ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to keep trying it until it stops me. And then ultimately this was the time. Like it works until it doesn't. So there was big implications going into this match that we talked about, right? The winner of this fight, which is Derrick Lewis, now basically has put himself in line to fight not the winner of Miocic versus Ngannou, but the winner of Jones versus whoever wins Miocic and Ngannou, which, that could be a couple years from now. So Derrick Lewis is now tied with Vitor and Belfort for the most knockouts in UFC history with 12. Do you think, just out of curiosity, do you think that this speaks to a bigger picture for Lewis? Is this a Hall of Fame caliber athlete, even if he doesn't secure a heavyweight championship?
I mean, as a fan of Derrick Lewis, yes, I would love to think that. But as a fan of the sport, I don't necessarily think so, because he's only fighting 3-round fights. He himself has said, I don't want to fight 5-round fights. Yeah. He doesn't even want to go for gold necessarily. He wants to fight Alistair Overeem, which in terms of just your belt, like your own personal, hit list, that kind of does lead him a little more towards legend status. But ultimately, time will tell. I definitely think if he keeps the route he's going, keeps knocking people out, keeps knocking legends out, that'll get him to where he needs to go. And if he doesn't want to fight a 5-round fight, then he's just going to have to finish him early. It's just extra incentive, really.
Well, let's make a bold prediction right now. And you know what I mean? I'm not going to hold you to it. I kind of will. But you know what I'm saying? Will Derrick Lewis be a UFC champion by the time it's all said and done?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That one's easy. That one's easy. I think within the next 2 years, that would have been a harder to say. But I think he will, man, because you just have a guy who's still young and not necessarily sees an opportunity. Once he gets a shot, because he had a shot with Daniel Cormier, and it didn't work out as he planned. But going back to this fight with Blaydes, man, you saw Blaydes actually shot for the double leg, ended up getting a single leg, and Derrick Lewis just high legged him. He just bent that knee super high, stayed balanced, pushed him off, ended up scrambling out of it. And I think with Derrick Lewis seeing a little bit of action, and he even said money's right, I'm just going to save money, man. It's just about getting better. And having that growth through the sport will lead him to kind of have that passion for actually getting gold, which will lead him towards more legendary status, especially with taking out previous champs like Alistair Overeem, and then maybe whoever else comes after that, John Jones, anybody can. The world's his oyster basically going forward, as long as he keeps dropping big bombs.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. You know what I mean? But I disagree in one part. I do think that Derrick Lewis can ultimately grab that gold, but I think that's it. I don't see him as being a defending champion, someone who makes like a long title reign, but I do think he can secure the belt and then be like, all right, man, well, listen, my balls is hot. I got to go back to Texas and go, handle some business or whatever. Like, it's just a character. And that's the thing. Sometimes, man, in the sport, we have to realize, right, it's not always about the gold, man. Sometimes just make the money that you can make while you're doing the thing that you love to do. And that's it. So nonetheless, man, this was very, very impressive. I do think that Curtis Blaydes, it's not like he put on a poor effort. He was winning the fight until he wasn't, but that's the heavyweight division. So I'm just going to say this, man. It's unfortunate because Curtis Blaydes now, he's going to have to string together another 3-4 wins if he wants a title shot, man. He just put himself to the back of the queue, and that's the fight game, though, man. So listen, this uppercut, I think this is going to be, along with that Corey Sandhagen flying knee with Frankie Edgar, we got 2 contenders for knockout of the year, and it's only February. So it's good to hear just on the UFC end. Now, the next one that was really interesting to me was another knockout, right? Tom Aspinall, or not a knockout, a finish, though. Tom Aspinall, he submits Andrei Arlovski. And just so you understand, because to me, this was a big fight. To some other people, they're like, dude, this is an old man. Of course he's going to steamroll him. But this is so big to me because this is the second time in Arlovski's, let me see, he's got now 50 fights, 50 career fights. This is the second time Andrei Arlovski has been submitted in his entire MMA career. So that is super duper impressive from Tom Aspinall. But ultimately, man, Aspinall, this dude showed that he's nice on the hands. He's got hand speed like I have never seen before from a heavyweight next to like a Tyson Fury. It's kind of that caliber hand speed. But I just think that he had a more impressive finish, but he isn't where he needs to be, like how Kyle Daukaus knocks out Alexei Oleinik, and now this dude's in the top 10 immediately. So Aspinall, he called out the winner of Oleinik versus Daukaus, but I don't think he's going to get it because why ruin 2 really good prospects, right? Let me ask you, what's your opinion on just the prospect nature of building up a fighter, right? Do you think, because UFC is the land of killers, do you believe that 2 young prospects like a Kyle or a Daukaus and Aspinall should face off? And just kind of, whoever wins, you keep moving your career forward. Whoever loses gets sent back. What do you think?
I definitely think you want young prospects, especially both people who are finishing old dudes, keep sending them to the old dogs. Might as well. Especially, it's a cold, hard truth of the UFC. They're cutting people, and they're trying to get the best of the best fighters to the top of the heap, which is ultimately what we all want to see. You know, we just want to see as fight fans who is best at what practitioner and what's going to win at the end of the day. And I mean, it's sad to say I want the young dogs to go in there and start just facing off with old killers, you know, and taking them out. But that's what it is, and we're going to see some exciting things going forward. And I personally, what I would like to see is Tom Aspinall and Kyle Daukaus not fight each other for a next couple, at least another year. Give them another 2-3 fights each, and then meet up when the money's on the line. You know, you got title implications, and actually see these people we've been seeing on free fight cards build up their status on more free fight cards, maybe a couple pay-per-views down the road, so we can actually see the casual fan build a solid interest in the young dogs. That would be exciting for me to see.
I'm with you. Now, Kyle Daukaus is a middleweight, and he's Chris Daukaus' little brother, but I feel you. Chris Daukaus is the one that we're talking about.
Sorry. Chris Daukaus. There you go. And, man, Chris Daukaus, like I was saying in the pre-fight, man, don't sleep on him. He's going to be here for a long time, man.
Well, he's the Philly cop, man. He's a tough guy, and he said it's funny because when Michael Bisping, he was pressing him. He was like, bro, you got to call somebody out. And dude was like, nah, I don't deserve to call anybody out. I'll call out Stipe. There you go. He was like, let me string together another win, and then I'm going to start calling people out. But, yeah, 2 young heavyweight prospects, and he got out of Oleinik super easy, man. This is another one where I was wrong. You got the right pick, but I felt like Oleinik's submission skill, this dude, it was his 75th professional fight. I think it's time. What we're seeing right now, this is ultimately what I think it is. We're just seeing the passing of the torch, man. The older generation of heavyweights who have been sticking around forever are finally having to concede to the young guns who are really not playing around, making a big name, man. And Chris Daukaus is very, very impressive, man. And now he's definitely in the top 15, if not the top 10. And I would like, you know, we're going to matchmake in a second, you know what I mean? So let's not get ahead of ourselves. But let's just run through a couple more of these, man. Next impressive on my list was Yana Kunitskaya defeating Ketlen Vieira. Now, I want to talk to you about the implications of this because Kunitskaya, she wins by a unanimous decision, 29-28 all across the board. But there was a lot of controversy on this, and if you go to verdict, Ketlen Vieira actually won the popular score from all of the fans just kind of putting in their open scoring. So what I want to talk about is I think that the UFC officiating or the judging is actually catching up a little bit, right? One of the gripes is that wrestling is favored just a little bit too much. You can just put someone in top control and not really do anything and win the round. But we saw something different here. We saw Yana Kunitskaya get controlled for the majority of the fight, but put up almost like a 6-to-1 ratio in terms of strikes, man. It was crazy. It was actually, in terms of significant strikes, Yana Kunitskaya put up 47, Ketlen Vieira put up 7. But Ketlen Vieira controlled her the whole fight. Submission attempts, back mount, you know what I mean? Armbar attempts, had her in danger in a couple spots, but Vieira lost the fight. You know, a lot of people are saying it's the strangest thing to see somebody control a fight for 3 rounds and still lose. But Yana Kunitskaya, she's no slouch, man. And that Team Maheta experience, you know what I mean? It paid dividends. So just in terms of from what you saw from the fight, you know what I mean? Seeing the control from Vieira over Kunitskaya, do you think that we're taking a new turn in MMA judging right now, to where we're starting, like, the judges are adapting to the sport? It used to be just boxing. What is this wrestling stuff? And now they're saying, okay, well, you can't just take somebody down and hold them, man. You got to do something with it. Good or bad? What are your thoughts?
I think it's good. And I think what we're seeing more into transition is that if you're staying active and staying in the fight, then you're not losing. If you're just willing to lay on your back and let the top pressure happen, then okay, it's not going to look that good for you. But if you're staying active and actually doing just even little pop shots to the face, like it's gonna impress the judges more that you're trying something new, because as far as they are catching up, they're not necessarily catching up in the fact that they know the intricacies of the chess match that's going on the ground, and they won't appreciate that. Especially the casual fans, it's not necessarily exciting, but what's nice to see for me as a fan is that the judges are understanding that if you're staying active and staying trying and rolling in transition and defending, you're not going to lose the fight. You actually have a fighting chance instead of just control. It's interesting to see the transition.
I think it's beautiful though, right? Because if you're in the know, you're seeing, oh no, they're working. You know what I mean? Like, this is a crazy fight. But to the casual fan, now they're going to have to start accepting a little bit more. Oh, you can win a fight while your back is on the mat. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's the BJJ aspect of it being adopted a little more into the mainstream culture, which I always think is a good thing. And you know what I mean? I think that this was a huge win for Kunitskaya. This was number 6 versus number 7. So if anything, Kunitskaya moves up to number 6, and then, you know, she can be in that kind of short list to maybe start taking another couple fights to get a potential, you know what I mean, get a title shot in the near future. But that brings us to our next one, Charles Rosa versus Darrick Minner, man. Talking about BJJ, this was one of the highest level BJJ matches I've seen since, and not that long ago, since Diego Fajeda versus Dariush, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, right? This is one of those high level type BJJ matches. And Darrick Minner, man, the big underdog, he came in at, he closed at plus 160, and he got the job done 30-26, 30-27, and 29-28, man. So this is another one that goes to show that Charles Rosa took that, I'm going to take the open guard and I'm just going to do a submission attempts, but it didn't work because the wrestler, the top control from Darrick Minner got the job done, man. He outstruck him, he out-wrestled him, he out-grappled him. This just is a big testament to me that's saying that these glory MMA fighters, that James Krause camp that he got going on over there, these underdogs who can game plan very well because they have great coaching, is nothing to mess around with, man. Charles Rosa is American top team fighter, man. This was a very, very impressive win. So my question to you is this, man. With Darrick Minner, his last decision win came in like 2015 in a regional circuit. Dude's got 22 submissions under his belt. What does this tell you about a fighter with that type of record, man? Are we looking way too much into the record and not looking at these people as fighters, as multidimensional beings?
One could get definitely hyper focused on the 22 submissions. That sounds amazing. And I definitely think what that speaks more to for me is the fact that they're game planning out there. Mm-hmm. They're seeing, okay, man, this is what we do well. Obviously, you can see it in the fight. They do work on other stuff, but they know specifically what works so well. Maintain that top control. Use your aspects. Use his aspects against him. That's more so what speaks to me than just the record. That it's a tried and true plan that hasn't broken yet, and they haven't done to do any fixes or minor tweaks as far as the whole thing goes. But that's what it says to me, is that the game plan there is precise and they're working hard. Because if you're doing something 22 times, man, you're doing it right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
mm-hmm. But the game plan for him, generally speaking, was I'm gonna gas out in the first round, chase the submission. If I don't get it, ultimately I might get tapped. Dude's been tapped over like 10 times, I believe, or something like that. But nonetheless, this was really impressive because it's these grinders, these high-paced dudes, man. People are gonna have to start realizing you need to be on your cardio, man. If you can't go 3 rounds minimum, you're not gonna have a good chance really elevating up to the top ranks, man. Because Darrick Minner, listen, man, I'm gonna say Charles Rosa and Darrick Minner both aren't. Maybe they're probably like top 30 fighters, right, in their division right now. Maybe top 30, top 40 fighters in their division. So you got a lot of work to do to get to the top 15. A lot of people probably think that the division is only, 20, 25 fighters. No, there's a lot of fighters, dude, and you have to really work to work your way up there. But nonetheless, man, let's talk about this middleweight bout, because that Minner result was very impressive. And I ain't really got much more to say until we get to the matchmaking. So I just want to hit on this last one really quick. Phil Hawes defeats Nasruddin Imavov by majority decision, 28-28, 29-28 times 2, man. And this one was crazy because we asked the question. We literally asked it in the preview show. What happens when Phil Hawes doesn't land the big punch? What happens when he lands the big punch and his opponent doesn't crumble because he's knocking everybody out in the first, second round? Well, we saw it today, and we saw that Nasruddin Imavov put the hands on Philip Hawes, man. Philip Hawes is a great wrestler, and that's what saved the day. I believe he's a junior college national champion in wrestling. And listen, this dude did the funky chicken dance, if not 2-3 times. I'm very taken aback by this because I thought Phil Hawes had more cardio than that, man, but he really gassed out. My question to you is ultimately this, man. If you rock somebody, this is another thing about judging, because this is what it comes down to. This is controversial as well. If you rock somebody multiple times, but you're being controlled the majority of the fight, but you logically you landed the harder punches, man. You had your opponent hurt. That counts for something, right? You know what I mean? One judge gave it 28-28 because of how many times Hawes simply was hurt. So I think we're not necessarily factoring in, you punched me 30 times and I only punched you 10 times, but every time I hit you, you was almost out. You almost finished the fight. What do you think about that?
I mean, you would hope it weighs a little more, because when you're stunning people, but the guy is able to come back, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, as a fighter, you want to finish. Yeah. Because you don't want the judges saying anything like that, because you can get how you feel robbed. You know what I'm saying? You're stunning the guy the whole time, and if this is on the streets and there's no judges, ultimately, and I put you away, that's the fight game. But, or like if your homies come in and stop it, but it's hard to say with the judging what they actually do, and you can't necessarily bet on it. Yeah. So I think you would want to see the harder strikes and the chicken legs actually count for something. But man, even talking about it in this show, the judging is so up and down with what they're seeing, because some of them want activity from the ground. Some of them, Derek Minner, top control, works all day. Even here with Hawes, just because he's pressuring, controlling the fight, because control of the fight it is one of the judging guidelines that they have. Mm-hmm. And it does weigh pretty heavy usually. Usually the guy advancing forward takes control of the fight and wins a lot of the time. But sometimes there's those fights where that dude just sits on a back foot and pinks you and necessarily doesn't put you out. In this case, just stuns you. It should lead a little more, and I hope it does lead a more. What do you think?
I agree, man. I think that we just need to get a more solidified consensus of like, this is how we're going to judge these fights, because that's the difference. If you're judging it, so this is Vegas, right? So this is Nevada State Athletic Commission, as opposed to watching LFA fights, you know what I mean? Where they got like the Kansas Commission, or you got the New York Commission, or you got the California Commission. They're all judging it differently. And I just hope that we can get a little more consistency in the future, because you want to know as a fighter, all right, well, if I do this, it is going to be weighed a little bit heavier in the judge's eyes. But nonetheless, man, I just think this is a wake-up call for Phil Hawes, man. You got the win. You got the win, and you're going to keep moving forward, man, but you're going to have to shore up some of those deficiencies, and you're going to have to clean it up on the feet, man, because when you got a dude, it's basically like the fight that I want to talk about next, and I just want to run by this really quickly. This was Nate Landwehr versus Julian Erosa. It was basically like this fight where you got Landwehr, who is a tank, a brawler, a bruiser, versus a sniper like Erosa, who is long, lanky, and just got to put that right one in there. Precision versus power versus speed and those things, right? And it was one of those fights, man, where, like I said, man, when you could sit back, just calm, compose, and just land that big shot, sometimes it is more than the flurry of punches. So that leads me to the next one. Julian Erosa, in the 45 seconds that we got, man, it was a barn burner of a fight, man. We got Erosa gets rocked, then he pushes Landwehr back with a flurry of punches and jumping, flying switch knees him in the face to put him out. We talked about this just in our little text message, chat or whatever, talking about like, was it a questionable stoppage? Was it a little bit early, man? So it was chaos. It was full chaos. It wasn't even a fight, man. It was just nonstop action chaos. Let's talk about that. Let's just air that out really quickly, man. I don't necessarily think that it was early stoppage, because I think that Landwehr needs to just live to fight another day. You was rocked bad. I don't think you would have came back to really put something on him the way that you were rocked. But, tell me what your rebuttal on that.
I think you're ultimately, at the end of the day, you're correct. Long-term success in your sport and your craft is obviously best terms for you. But I think right now, man, Landwehr would have much rather gone out on his shield. He popped up instantly. And I can see why the fight was stopped, 100%. I can totally see why it was. And there was another, at first when it happened, I was like, man, he's up right away. Like, that's a little bit early of a stoppage, but you saw at another angle, he definitely did get rocked, and he was hurt. And both fighters were hurt, but when you're taking shots on the ground, and he took, I think it was like 2 or 3 clean to the side of the head while he's still on the ground, and Rosa's just, I'm looking at the Erosa. There you go. Erosa was just unloading. And the ref did step in. I think when that's happening, you can only take so many of those before you really start to get serious brain damage and break a jaw, break something orbital. You know what I'm saying? Just bad things happen when you're unprotected, and that's ultimately what the judges or what the referee is there to do.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Now, Julian Erosa, he's on a 3-fight win streak, and he said it himself. He was like, I didn't even see what Landwehr hit me with, but I was rocked, and I told you I was coming in there ready to die, man. So it truly was a war. It wasn't one person getting starched, man. This was back and forth, and that's why I love the sport. It's so unpredictable, you know what I mean? I really thought Landwehr, he opened up as an underdog. He ended up closing as a favorite. Most people were thinking Landwehr come in there and just beat up on him, but really hard to get past that frame and that length of Erosa. He's so long, such a sniper. But incredible stuff nonetheless, man. So I just wanted to hit on that, and let's do a little bit of matchmaking, man. Let's do a little bit of matchmaking, and keep it pushing. Look ahead into the future a little bit, man. So let's only hit the winners, right? And let's run through this pretty quickly, because I don't think that there's, outside of Lewis and Kunitskaya, and I guess Daukaus now, nobody else is really ranked. So these are really up for interpretation, right? So Derrick Lewis, man, there's one of two options that I see that even makes sense here. You either wait for the title shot, you know what I mean? Why even risk it? Why take another fight? Or you have to do the thing that the UFC pushes people to do. It says, no, homie, you are going to take another fight, or else your ass is getting skipped up in the queue, and you're not getting that title shot versus John Jones or whoever the winner of that ultimate fight is. So I think that if Derrick Lewis doesn't just sit around and wait for the title shot, man, What about the winner of Stipe versus Ngannou? You know, I mean, the loser of Stipe versus Ngannou. You know, Jones goes on to fight the winner, and then Derrick Lewis fights the loser of that, and then it's like, all right, that's like a little heavyweight tournament right there. What do you think?
I mean, that's not the worst idea, although except you're fighting a killer or a killer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I genuinely think Derrick Lewis camp got this one right, and they want to go after Alistair Overeem. He's still a star. I don't know if he's necessarily going to fight again. We'll see. But I think doing another 3-round fight, getting another one under your belt, getting some more time, because Derrick Lewis was struggling. Like, he was hurting, he's defending takedowns, he was working, he was sweating up a storm in that second round. But ultimately, he just landed a great shot. And what if he didn't? What if he missed? You're on your back, you're getting taken down, or you're up there defending again. You know, it's quite a dog fight in that heavyweight division. It's crazy thinking of it now. It's absolutely crazy that I'm saying you'd rather take a fight with Alistair Overeem versus Stipe or Ngannou. I would. That's absolutely, any one of those is absolutely insane. Yeah. And I do think that keeping a 3-rounder for Derrick Lewis is what's best right now, because those guys aren't going to fight for quite a while. And then how long's the break going to be for whoever the loser is? Because they're probably going to be hurt for a while. You know, you lose a fight to either Stipe or Ngannou, you're going to be out for at least 6-7 months. You know what I'm saying? You're going to want a little break, a little headspace. So it's just a long process for Lewis, and I think taking a sooner fight is a lot better, because you got to stay current. You got to make that money. You know what I'm saying? And then I think you're right when you said Derrick Lewis is in it for the show time, and then he's out. Necessarily. He's a character, and I think that'll lead him to longer term success in the sport. And as far as like media, you know, just he's going to be a character we love seeing, and that's why I'm a fan personally.
Well, first, just to hit on what you had said, to comment on that, I do think he's like the Diaz brothers in a way. You know what I mean? You don't got to be a champion, but they're a star in the UFC nonetheless. Derrick Lewis is a star. People are tuning in to see this fight, right? If not to see the fight, at least to see the post-fight interview after, because it's always comedy. You know what I'm saying? So I think what Overeem makes the most sense. I guess I'm talking more if he wanted to pursue a championship, which he's already clearly stated. It's not number one on the list. You know what I'm saying? But interesting matchmaking nonetheless. Now, Yana Kunitskaya, man, the women's bantamweight, you know, right now, it's not looking too active. You know what I mean? You got Marion Renault versus Macy Chiasson. That's happening in just a couple weeks. You got Julia Avila versus Julia Stoliarenko. That's happening soon. And Alexis Davis is moving up from flyweight to fight Sabrina Mazo, who is a young up-and-comer in the bantamweight division. So there's not really much from, you know, me to say here for Yana Kunitskaya, but I was thinking, okay, you just beat Ketlen Vieira, whose only major loss is to Irene Aldana. She already got she got her big shot. She lost that one. How about Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya? Two big strikers, man, two big bodies. What do you think about that?
That sounds like an amazing fight. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Irene Aldana. She's strong, and I think one of her biggest aspects is how surprisingly strong she is for her division. That sounds like an interesting matchup, because if you put Yana Kunitskaya in there, she clinches her up the whole time and doesn't let her utilize that strength, utilize that technique of her striking, and she controls that. That would be very interesting, and I think that would be a grudge match, man. That would be something very interesting to see. I was personally thinking like even Aspen Ladd just one up, or maybe, you know, drop it back down, but take out a legend like Raquel Pennington, you know, but I think that right there, Irene Aldana is probably the fight to make.
I think so. Dana, book it. UFC, come on, man. Holla at me, right? I got you. But I was thinking, yeah, that one makes sense. Obviously, Pennington, once she gets back from her suspension, you know, then we could talk, right? But even maybe the winner of Holly Holm versus Pena, Juliana Pena versus Holly Holm, that's happening in a couple of weeks too. But I do think that Aldana fight, that makes the most sense stylistically, and I think it'll be a big test because Aldana is no slouch whatsoever. So yeah, man, I would like to see you know, Ketlen Vieira kind of, you know what I mean? She has to string together another couple ones, because this was supposed to be the big break. This is supposed to be the moment she put everything together, and it kind of fell apart on her. But you know, that's kind of how it goes. So okay, so what about Darrick Minner, man? This one was really tough for me because I'm like, dude, you're nowhere near ranked. I don't know who exactly would want to fight you in terms of the risk versus reward, but I was thinking someone we just talked about, someone who just fought on the same card, Juicy J, Julian Erosa. You know what I mean? He's on a 3-fight win streak right now, and I think this would be a really good matchup because Darrick Minner, he's the submission specialist, and he won on the stand-up. He won in the stand-up versus Charles Rosa. So why not fight another big, long dude, you know what I mean, who's really nice in the stand-up and can submit you in Julian Erosa? That's one of my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, I mean that's especially because they're both current and neither of them are huge household name that have been fighting as popular or as frequent as some of the other ones have. That's I mean, if you're making matches up straight based on just like skill set, I think you throw him at Thug Nasty.
Ooh, yeah.
I think you give him to the grill, let him see what he's made of, test that 22 submission, you know what I'm saying? Let's really see that practitioner at work. Or this is another one. This is when he comes back, obviously from the suspension, but mix it up completely. Give Yair Rodriguez another shot.
Interesting.
Send him at a striker. Send him at complete opposite, so you can see either similar situations, similar strategies, or complete opposites. See what really unfolds in the mix-up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of options for him right there, man. With the one with Thug Nasty, you know, you would have to throw him in the rankings at that point, though, if he gets the dub, right? Throw him against a ranked opponent. But nonetheless, man, I don't know if he's quite ready for the ranked opponent. I think he might need one more to get there, another really impressive one, because I want to see him on the feet a little bit more. You know what I mean? I want to see what he could really bring on the feet, not just using the stand-up to get the submission. But then again, there's nothing wrong. If you win the fight, you win the fight, and that's what it comes down to. But Derek Minner, bright future ahead. Dude's already got a bunch of fights. Dude's got 35-plus fights. This is only, I think, his third fight or fourth fight now in the UFC. So future's bright for that guy. Now, Phil Hawes, man. So this one was, Megatron. Phil Hawes, big tank. I wasn't impressed by the victory, though. A win is a win, but I still wasn't impressed. So I was thinking, you racking up these wins, how about a fight against Darren Wynn? The big wrestler, or the short wrestler, but the big, Deron Wynn, that dude is no joke, man. He's coming off of a loss in his last fight, and I think that, in all honesty, man, you would think you're a good wrestler. Let's put it to the test against Deron Wynn or Jun Young Park, who's a South Korean striker, man, big boy. Not too many people know about him. You know what I'm saying? But he's still on the up and coming, and he's a big time striker. So those are my potential ones for Philip Hawes. But like I said, he can go really anywhere with this one. What do you got for Hawes?
The hard one is because exactly that in middleweight he's unranked, like it's coming in, didn't look that good. I'm looking even top 50, like you're saying, that Deron Wynn somewhere kind of low. Like, man, it's even hard. I was thinking just someone recent in mind, Julian Marquez, but even then I wouldn't want those guys to match up yet. Give them a little more time because they both had a little bit of gas tank issues, but I think you throw them another kind of easy one. I mean, not as I say easy in the middleweight division. None of these dudes are easy, but yeah, I'm just gonna have to agree with you. I don't know. I'm not looking at anybody else on the matchup that I would like to see, unless you want to send him at young Kyle Daukaus. But I'd rather see a Deron Wynn. I'd rather see a wrestling match because Deron Wynn is looking good, but he did have, if I'm not mistaken, a loss in his last two.
Just last one.
Just last one. Yeah. So it'd be good to see him get back on the thing because he is an AKA wrestler coming out hot. So it'd be nice. It'd be an interesting one to see.
Yeah, I agree. Dude's definitely a savage. And let's hit this last one. Then let's put our ear to the street, man. Let's see what the word on the street is. But Tom Aspinall, he beats Arlovsky. He calls out the winner of Olenek versus Daukaus. I don't think he's going to get Daukaus because I don't think you should ruin two prospects that quickly. But I was thinking this one is a good old name, that we was talking about. Not old, but we've been talking about him for a minute. Alexander Romanov. Ooh, let's see what Aspinall could do against a big boy like that, who could wrestle, who could put you out with one punch. Nobody wants to fight Alexander Romanov right now, and I think Aspinall would be game.
Ah, man, Romanov, that'd be, yeah. I mean, especially because you haven't seen it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, why not? Give him to an old, like we're saying, give him to an old tested dog. Let him see somebody like that. I would love to see that fight.
Yeah. That one more, Tanner Boser coming off of the loss to Arlovsky. You know what I mean? Aspinall got the dub on Arlovsky. This could be like, all right, let's see which prospect is better. Boser's a little more hyped up. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little less sold on that one just because I don't think Boser's necessarily the biggest draw. Let me throw a crazy one at you, man. Mm-hmm. Send him to Greg Hardy.
So I was thinking that. I almost said it. The only reason I didn't is because, the hardcore fan in me says that's disrespectful to Tom Aspinall. You know what I mean? Let's give the man a little higher level of competition right there. But in terms of name value, to get Aspinall's name, you beat Arlovsky, then you beat Hardy, and now I mean, it sucks because Hardy isn't the greatest fighter in the world in terms of like true UFC athlete, MMA mixed martial artist. But nonetheless, it can get some hype on that name for sure. But listen, man, that's some of the matchmaking that we got on that one, man. You know, hopefully, like I said, UFC, give me a call. Dana, book some of these fights, man. At least if you're going to book anything, book that Kunitskaya, Irene Aldana. That's a banger. I would love to see it. But let's, like I said, man, let's put our ear to the street, man. Let's see what the word on the street is. So first and foremost, we got to hit on what happened at UFC Vegas 19. On Saturday night, Chas Skelly versus Jamall Emmers becomes the first bout in UFC history to get canceled while one fighter was already in the octagon, which was Chas Skelly. And if you heard it, the referee was all like, hey, Chaz, bout's canceled. And dude was like, what are you talking about? Why? Like, I'm already here. Let's rock. You know what I'm saying? And this was the first time in company history, man. Luckily, there was no fans in attendance. Imagine you got a packed stadium and that happens. Just what are your thoughts on that one, man? It's got to be, this is just a moment in history, if anything, to talk about.
You know, it's crazy, Derek. I didn't even think about the aspect of having what that would do, the kind of media attention that would have, and like the kind of uproar that would have. It kind of got underplayed because there's no fans. Like it kind of just happened. Everyone was like, I don't really know, and then they just kind of like went. You know, they just rolled with it, which was a hell of a mountain. They made a molehill out of that mountain. You know what I'm saying? They got real lucky on that one. Especially because it later came to the fact that it was a back spasms. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to send you out there, risk your health. That's ultimately at the end of the day what we're looking forward to. But yeah, it's. I didn't even think that would have been. That would have made history among history. That would have been in the top news lines for weeks. You know, like riots, cans thrown, like crazy shit would have happened, man. Or somebody steps up last second, makes a name for themselves. Well, like history could have been made.
It's funny you say that because Luis Pena tried. So Pena, he got his fight canceled against Jakar Close, right? So Close, his cornerman, he tests positive for COVID. So he says, hey, man, I really want to fight. We're comparable in weight. Let's get it on. Now, Nevada State Athletic Commission says, dude, cool try, but you got me fucked up. That's not going to happen, bro. What do you think this is? You know what I mean? This is we're trying to make this a major sport. This ain't the back alley no more where you just get that last second replacement. So ultimately, man, I do agree with you. I think the UFC dodged a huge PR scandal. Not even a scandal, but just one of those moments where imagine people do start throwing things into the octagon. People are pissed off. They're drunk. They're ready to see a fight. You know, it was crazy because, like I said, man, when you taking these risks and you putting on fights every week, some of these things are going to happen, man. So you got to applaud them. You can't put too much of a knock on them, but it was definitely, like I said, when I saw it, I was like, I don't remember ever seeing anything like this before. But next one we got, man. Dana White, he tells Brett Okamoto of ESPN that he has decided to give Ottman Azaitar a second chance with the UFC. This development comes less than 1 month after White told multiple outlets that Azaitar would be released from his contract for breaking COVID-19 protocols in Abu Dhabi, a.k.a. the infamous what's in the bag situation, man. What's in the bag? We need to know. I still want to know what's in the bag. You know what I mean? I feel like that should be the one contingency. All right, Ottman, you get to come back, but you got to let us know what's in the bag, bro. But my question ultimately is this, man. I did think it was a little harsh that he got cut from the UFC, although I understand, like, you do some dumb shit, that's what happens to you. But ultimately, man, do you think that we ever find out what was in the bag? And do you think that Azaitar deserves this second chance in the UFC, man? He was putting a lot of people's health at risk and putting their money at risk, because if he would have got somebody sick and they couldn't have performed, I mean, you flew all the way to Abu Dhabi for that to happen, that would be terrible. What do you think?
Not only are you putting people's health at risk, you're also putting their financial status at risk, man. I think, honestly, I don't know if that's a good call. One, you already proved that he's willing to risk safety ordinance for whatever glory or money or whatever he's doing. Two, you know, like, you're letting the precedent been set that it's cool to just break the rules a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, Dana White doesn't look as good going back on his word, saying this guy's cut. And then, like, ultimately for me, I'm with you, man. What's in the bag? Like, that. I feel like that should be the ultimate crux of what's in here. Like, all right, you had your training stuff, cool. You had like some crazy stuff. I don't know.
Some IVs in there. You bring some, you bring some Coke. What's in the bag, bro? You know what I'm saying? But I agree with you, man. And I think what it comes down to is that this is the honesty of the game. This is my honest opinion. I think that Dana White said, would you rather a Bellator, a PFL, a one championship snag this crazy athlete, this dude who's knocking everybody out and doing stuff like that, or slap on the wrist, bro. It's all right. Come back in. We're going to let the media die down a little bit. You know what I mean? And we're going to bring you back in. It's all good. I don't think they should have announced it. I think they should have kept it on the low and just been like, oh, Azaitar's fighting again? What? Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? Just because his brother, Abu Azaitar, his brother's in the UFC too, and he just got popped for something, man. He's on like a suspension as well. So tough stuff going on with that camp, man. But I do think it was interesting, and that is one of the unheralded qualities of the UFC is we could have something like this. You don't see nothing in the NFL or NBA where we're talking about what's in the bag. What could this do to... He had rocket launchers in the bag, bro. What is in the bag? You scaling balconies. I need to know. One day, I'm not forgetting about this. Someone's going to have to let me know. So, all right, man, let's hit our last piece of business, today. According to Rafael Alves, who missed weight by 11.5 pounds Friday morning during the UFC 19 weigh-ins, food poisoning is to blame for the scale botch. He was originally contracted to fight at 145 pounds, ended up coming in around 157, 158, man. First and foremost, I'm not going to sit here and just say, oh, you're nonsense, you're making all this stuff up, because if you looked at the dude on the scale, dude's chiseled. It's not like he's a fat dude coming out. Like, dude's chiseled. And sometimes, man, his story is that he ate bad fish, he got sick, he had diarrhea, and he was vomiting, and he needed to rehydrate, which is, if you know anything about, medical anything, yes, of course, that's what you need to do. He says because of that, all that water weight and all that extra stuff didn't allow him to make the contracted weight, but I've never seen no one have water bloating that gave you 12 pounds. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen anything like that. Nonetheless, this is, to me, who do you place the blame on? You know what I mean? I think this is a bad look for Alves, but for your team, for your camp, for your coaches and your management to say, yeah, go step out on that scale. You know what I mean? Go give it a shot. You should have been like, no, he can't make the weight, dude. Done. Dude was crying on the scale. Like, that's how, I just think his team put him in a terrible spot. What was your thoughts about this, man?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. Ultimately, you don't want to go out and cry in front of people on the scale. Don't show up, bro. Just get in the back, try to get that medical clearance, because obviously, and to me, when I first heard this, I saw him say fish, but this smelled a little more fishy to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. One, you're trying to cut weight, diarrhea and vomiting probably gonna help you. You're cutting a lot of water. You need to cut that extra 5-6 pounds. Now, that being said, yeah, sure. That's extremely dangerous and you could die.
Yeah.
So not the best for you. And I mean, water weight is one of those crazy things where when you cut all that weight and you've been waterlogging from, months out, and you start doing the necessary process to get down, you can gain it back pretty fast and rehydrate pretty fast. So it's almost too good of a story that it makes me a little worrisome about it. And because ultimately health is health is what we want people to have going forward. Nobody wants to die in the sport. That'd be ultimately bad for everyone. But it just sounds a little more fishy. It sounds like too good to be true, because why would you go out there? If it really was a health concern and really the story does hold up where, I was having diarrhea, I was having all this stuff where I'm losing stuff, I'm about to die, I need to drink some water, I'm overweight, guys. Like, I have all the proof. I've been talking to the doctors. Like, come on. I'm not gonna go out there and make a fool of myself, disrespect these people, make it look like I'm out here doing stuff. Yeah, so it just smells a little fishy, and I'm excited that he's healthy and alive, but we'll see where his future holds.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man, and I agree with you, man. I just think that sometimes you got to be the warrior that you are, and you got to take accountability for your actions, man. This was him as taking accountability, which he should, but I also think accountability needs to be placed on his team as well. But nonetheless, Dana White held him accountable, and he says if you want to fight in the UFC again, you have to move up to lightweight. And now he says he's moving up to lightweight, man. And this is another thing about the weight cutting stuff we talked about last week, or any time on this show, where it's just like, man, should you be cutting that amount of weight? Well, this time around for Rafael Alves, no, you shouldn't have. And this was the most weight missed by a fighter in UFC history ever in the 25 years of the sport. 11.5 pounds, man. That's a lot of pounds. But nonetheless, man, so that's all we got for you guys this week, folks. Don't forget, head over to allfactorsconsidered.com to find everything you need. We're over on all major streaming services, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the whole entire gambit, man. So all that stuff will be in the show notes below. But nonetheless, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, because that's the thing that boosts us up the algorithm. algorithm. You know, everything is controlled by algorithm these days, man. Let us get a little more spotlight because we're doing the research we need to get the picks that we got going. You see, I came short a little bit this week, but AJ was on the money. So if you was betting with him, man, you made some bread. So nonetheless, folks, we'll be back. You know what I mean? As always, I'll be back from my betting show on Wednesday, and then we right back at it. Jair Rosenstruck facing off against Cyril Gane next week at UFC Vegas 20, dude. There's so many good fights on that one. Obviously, we ain't talking about it today, but we will be back to talk about it. So until next time, folks, peace.